Okay, so welcome to the channel. I'm the guy who's making a real-time, strategy-based, story-driven digital TCG, and I am in the process of sort of doing a series explaining the process through which we got here, the different design elements that have gone into the game, so on and so forth. And today, I want to talk about the concept of RNG and my approach to it in my trading card game. Now, RNG is short for random number generation. It's just anything that you see in games that comes down to luck, basically. If it's a coin flip, what cards you draw after you shuffled your deck, so on and so forth. Now, why does that matter? See, there's this common sentiment among card game enthusiasts that RNG is an essential part of card games. You need to have some randomness in any given card game for a number of reasons. One of them is that luck is a part of skill, right? If a card game was completely random, then you wouldn't see the same top players consistently topping events. So it allows us to see what players are able to turn luck and bend it to their advantage, in a sense, right? It also allows for variety, right? It makes it so that not every single game plays out the exact same way. You get a number of different effects going off. Each game is like its own experience, like you're writing a story as you're going along with new twists and turns and so on and so forth. That randomness is supposed to add to the fun of the game, but that argument does get called into question when you start thinking about things like searchers and one-card combos that basically guarantee that you have the cards that you want in your opening hand at any given point in time. If anything, I would say, at least in Yu-Gi-Oh, that it's actually become more of an oddity to not have the cards that you want because it's just such a consistent game now. There's also the fact that some TCGs use RNG as a balancing mechanic, which I don't really love. Sure, that one card combo that rips all of the cards out of your opponent's hand and drains their life points to 0 and, I don't know, undoes their taxes for the year. Yeah, it's really bad. It's really bad as a combo, but you have to get really lucky and draw the right cards for it. There's also the fact that some TCGs use RNG as a balancing mechanic, which I don't really like. Like, okay, yeah, that combo can rip all of the cards out of your opponent's hand before they've even had a chance to play. But you can only do it sometimes, so I guess it's fine. Like, I get the logic behind that, but I don't really like it. Like, something broken may only happen to you every other game, or even 1 in every 5 games, but that means 1 in every 5 games, you are expecting or dreading the fact that something is making you want to quit the game, or experiencing it and just not having fun, right? I don't like leaving that kind of thing up to chance necessarily. So we've talked a little bit about RNG, how it works, why some games use it, ways that I don't necessarily like that I've seen it used in the past. Why does that matter for my game? Well, I've been playing TCGs for the last 6 years or so, which is great, but I've been playing a different game for basically my whole life, which is chess. My dad made sure that I learned it when I was a kid, and it is one of the skills that I am the proudest of. It's a game that I think everyone should learn to play because it teaches and rewards critical thinking, but what's interesting is that the options at your disposal never really change when it comes to chess. In each game, you start with the exact same pieces, and in each game, if you wanted to, you could open in the exact same way. What causes a variation in events and prevents the game from getting monotonous is how your opponent responds. That's the variation, that's the variable. It's trying to progress your strategy while also responding and reacting to whatever they do. That's the core gameplay loop, and that's why I love it so much. I love that just about every win is the result of keen thinking and outsmarting your opponent or outplaying them in some way, and that your losses usually lie on your own hands. You have to just play better or learn more or predict better or just so many things, right? That feeling, that experience is something that I wanted to emulate in Summoner's Nexus as well as I could, and I'll explain what I mean and how in a second. You see, I couldn't just take that concept and run with it because as a card game player, the idea of RNG isn't completely unappealing to me. I've experienced it, I have played through it, and I've enjoyed it in other card games. Like, yes, it's always nice having the cards to complete your combo, but it's also really exciting having those anime moments where you top deck exactly the right card for a given situation. Like, that is what makes these games so exciting and what gets your blood boiling. There's also those times where, like, you just might not have the ideal cards for your opening combo, so you have to, like, make do. You have to be innovative. You have to come up with something on the fly because, you know, you have been limited in some way by the RNG. And it really teaches that lesson that every card has value, not just the really cool, big, like, impactful ones, right? Because you just have to make do with what you've got in certain situations. That's not true at all, by the way. Some cards are just objectively better than others, right? Like, even in chess, the player who goes first is often decided at random. RNG can't be escaped for the most part in games like this. but it can be controlled. And so that's my objective here, is not to just eradicate the concept of RNG, but let's see what we can do to temper it. In Summoner's Nexus, you start each game with 10 cards in your hand, and I made it so that you choose exactly which 10 cards you start with. There's no randomness there. You have a guarantee these are the cards in your opening hand. Sort of like chess, the options at your disposal will always be the same if you choose to make them the same. Now, in order to keep this from being broken, I balance it around what's called a synergy system, which effectively limits which cards can be in your opening hand and which combination of cards can be in your opening hand to prevent any one starting hand from being too broken. Now, taking this a step further, there's no turn system because players play at the exact same time. You make decisions at the same time as your opponent. However, when it comes to activating effects, we do have to take turns, which means there needed to be a system for deciding who would go first, who would get the first option to activate their effect. And rather than leaving this up to chance, I made it something that is controllable in game. The player who has less life points left, the player with less in their Nexus gauge, gets to activate their effects first, which means there's now strategy. There is the ability to command and control and decide when you will go first if you play in a way that makes that happen, which again, I just find very interesting. It's something that you can predict. It's something that you can control. Here's the thing though, and this is why I say that, you can't escape RNG. On the first turn of the game, both players have an equal value in their Nexus gauge because we just started. And on various turns, you and your opponent might be tied for life. And in those situations, yeah, it has to be random, right? You flip a coin and decide who's going to go first in that situation. So you can't escape RNG, but I do like the fact that I've been able to mitigate its impact somewhat. Like in my mind, randomness and equality go hand in hand, right? You can't, if everyone has an equal chance of being chosen, that's fairness to me, right? At that point, it's just luck, right? It's the luck of the draw and how it goes down. And I'm okay with that because, again, the game is very skill-oriented, it's very strategy-focused and strategy-oriented, but sometimes things in life do just come down to luck. And I mean, like, yeah, you start with whatever 10 cards you want in your opening hand, but there are still 10 more cards that you draw over the course of the game that need to bolster your strategy and keep your resources up. Yeah, that's completely random, right? Because in any game, if you have every single card you want for your deck at your disposal, you should probably win. Either that or your deck's overall power output is quite low, right? So the only real way to temper that is, yeah, introduce a little bit of randomness. I couldn't escape this. So I didn't want to prevent my effects from being fun and colorful and vibrant, but I also had to try and keep balance in mind when doing all of this. So like, there are some caveats. I'm trying to avoid introducing too many effects with search features and functionality, right? Where it's like, oh, summon this card and just get a different card from your deck. That will eventually probably become a thing, but for the time being, I'm trying to keep that at very low levels and just doing what I can to make sure that the game is more based on skill than anything else. I want the skill expression of this game to be very high at both a gameplay stage, but also a deck building stage, right? Deciding what cards to open with and what turns to play those cards is where the true skill of this game comes from. And I'm hoping to keep it that way for as long as possible. In any event, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed a little bit of the insight as to how and why the game was built the way that it was. If you did, subscribe. Find like various updates on the game as we progress on this channel, and just become part of our community because I would love to have you here. I am rambling. I'm going to end the video now. Take care. Have a great day.